Well, good morning. Welcome back. It's now a few days since the last little piece to camera, and as you can see, hopefully, it's actually quite a pleasant morning. And so I thought I'd come back out again, just with that little subtle sort of pinks and purples going on, and see whether or not just that change in colour can bring anything different. Still with the same setup, the X100T and the FORMATT HITECH 10 stop. So just a little bit of ambient light. Sunrise is in about 5 or 6 minutes. So again, just playing with that aperture, trying to see whether I can get that 3-4 second exposure. It's nice for it not to be windy actually. It's been once again very windy up here. And yeah, of course, it's now a few days since my last little piece to camera where I referenced a certain thing. And yeah, as I sadly predicted, things are escalating pretty quickly, so trying to get out as much with the camera as possible before what I believed to be coming, you know, the whole not a lot of going outside. So anyway, let's have a little bit of a play. Some of that pinks are actually sort of disappearing a little bit, but hopefully we'll have a second burst. Right, let's go wiggle that camera a little bit. You know, one of the things that perhaps seems obvious when you think about it, but less obvious when you're winging your camera about. Just like when you're taking a normal image, where you're looking for where the light is hitting and maybe sort of emphasizing that in the frame. Similarly, well, I find anyway, when you're thinking about throwing your camera around your head with a little bit of ICM, I'm looking to see what parts of the sky and maybe what parts of the sea have got some of that or more of that pink and purple in them. And at the moment I'm getting about a 4 to 5 second exposure. And so I'm lingering my camera over those areas, or the frame over those areas, as much as possible before doing a little bit more fluid movement. And what that's allowing me to do is actually bring a little bit more of the colour into the scene. Obviously, if I was to just sort of fling it around, you know, without much thought, it would be an average kind of scene. And so it's just a case of, now it's a little bit more challenging on whenever you're using a slightly sort of wider field of view or a fixed field of view. One of my favourite lenses for doing ICM with is the 18-135, because that gives you huge amount of potential to isolate little areas. But as I say, there's just, now that sun again has kind of, it's obviously been blocked a little bit. It was starting to look quite positive, but what I'm hoping is some of these sort of thicker medium clouds will start to pick up a little bit of that light, and then I'll be leaving my camera kind of over that area for a little bit before maybe going back into more of a fluid movement, just to see whether I can bring some of that extra colour to the frame. All in all, it's a rather pleasant morning. I think the other thing I find, some beautiful sand patterns down here. This beach actually does get some lovely sort of sand patterns, the little sort of pebbles that have been washed up. Anyway, getting distracted. Where was I? Oh yes. So one of the other things I think it helps me is when I'm shooting ICM, I'm always taking a look to see what the frame looks like on the back of the screen. Now that may seem obvious, but again, if I think something's not working, especially at this where the colours maybe sort of gone a little bit, I can then say, look, there's no point in kind of, you know, flinging the camera around again because that colour's not there. But similarly, if something is kind of working, I then try to repeat maybe that movement, and I maybe look at a couple of frames. I think I mentioned this before. Unfortunately, the X100T can only do a double exposure of 2 images in camera. And so again, I'm thinking, what about post-processing? What about actually overlaying multiple images on top of that? So I'm kind of always looking out for either what movement is working, what color is working, and then flicking through 2 or 3 frames back and forward to see whether I think maybe there's the option to overlay some of those images on top of each other. Now, I think the sun has now risen above the horizon. A couple of cormorants out there. Actually, we had a shag in here really close in a few days ago. Must have been pretty knackered from all of the winds. Really good to see. Again, I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, even without making any images at the moment, it's still a rather nice morning. And these sand patterns are just beautiful. Of course, there's been a crazy dog running through, but hey, it is the beach. And we should all be more like, in fact, I actually reckon a good therapy would be, for at least 20 minutes a day, go chase a ball on a beach. That seems to work. Don't you just hate it when the weather forecast is for once right? And it seems to be right when you don't want it to be right, and wrong when you want it to be right or something. So yeah, pretty sure that we are due some heavier cloud moving in as the morning progresses, and any of that early morning light has kind of gone. However, just being down here and working over at some of the little sand patterns has sort of kicked off a couple of ideas in my head, potentially of what could be down here with a tripod and a different lens camera combo. But anyway, I think I'm going to wrap up this episode here. So much going on in my head, you know, obviously still pretty lost and upset and not sure what to do regarding the loss of Guinness, but of course this has now been compounded with the current state of affairs going on, which of course is only going to get, I think, a little bit worse before it gets better. So the time out with the camera, even just, I think I'll talk about this in an upcoming vlog. You know, I think I've kind of fallen out of love a little bit with the individual image. Now, not the individual image itself, but if I just leave it as an individual image, and I'm really starting to think more in regards to projects and stories, and even just little mini things like coming down onto a beach and, you know, shooting for an afternoon and calling that, you know, a little mini project. And I think just getting out over these last 5 or 6 days with the X100T has kind of just allowed me to think a little bit like that, and rather, you know, none of the individual images are really going to be, I think, by themselves much cop, but hopefully together, you know, they maybe will just start to tick things over. I don't know, I think you're gonna have to bear with me over these next few weeks and months while I try to process a lot of stuff. I think a lot of stuff's going to kind of come out in my head. So anyway, with dog walkers and runners and all kinds of people starting to appear in the beach, time for me to take my leave. I'm gonna catch up again soon. Take care, guys, and especially in these times, be kind to one another, eh? We're going to need it. See you later. Bye-bye. Well, good morning and welcome back. It was a rather nice, sort of subtle sort of morning this morning. The light was actually quite nice for about half an hour. I didn't really record anything. I just had a little bit of a play around. Still having fun with ICM. I just thought I would, while I was doing this, I wasn't actually planning on sort of recording anything for this vlog this morning. I say this vlog has been over several days. But as I was kind of working through some of my process, I thought I would kind of chat about that a little bit. So there's another two things that I kind of am thinking about when I'm doing ICM. So obviously I'm shooting in RAW, but I am playing about with the white balance when I'm shooting. And what that allows me to sort of get thinking about is, as I think I said earlier in this video or in the previous video, my aim isn't to necessarily keep things as reality, but actually have a little bit of a play about with some of the colors, and having a play about with the white balance when shooting starts to sort of get the old grey matter working in terms of maybe how I'm going to sort of take some of those colors, whether that's the cool blue tones and the purples, or maybe sort of warm it up a little bit, or maybe go a little bit crazy with some darker, deeper reds. The other thing that I'm sort of thinking about here is, would I be able to So at the moment I'm really just playing about with the waves, but I'm thinking, would I be able to maybe put a structure in there with maybe a double or triple exposure? And so this rock behind me, I've kind of also been taking a number of frames with it, with the thought process that, again, if I was to double expose that in post-processing, could I almost make that look like a little bit of a subject, an object in the water, maybe a sort of a ship at sea or something? So these are just some of the things that kind of rattle around inside the old grey matter when I'm out doing a little bit of ICM. So anyway, well, it's now Friday the 20th, no, Thursday the 20th. I have no idea what day it is, to be fair. It's Thursday, I think. Things are still pretty crazy and getting crazier by the day, so really trying to get out as much as possible. Still local, still on this beach in West Strand. I live 2 minutes that way. Trying not to burn up too much fuel at the moment. But then again, why would you? Lovely little bit of, looks like there's a little bit of a cloud burst going on there as well. But anyway, so I'm going to carry on playing here with a little bit of ICM. I think I'll kind of draw a line under this little sort of mini series of 2 episodes with the X100T. I'll fire up a bunch of images that I've got over the last couple of days. And I guess, depending on how things develop, hopefully I'll get out and about another couple of times and we'll share that with you guys. Right, I'm off to wiggle the camera a little bit more, and then I think it's coffee time. Catch up soon. Bye bye.